Hello everybody, and welcome to Cooper's Amputee Lifestyle on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. And today I have a story to share with you guys that takes place on a small island called Bonaire Island down in the Caribbean, just 40 miles north of the coast of Venezuela. Now, this little Dutch Caribbean island was part of the ABC Islands, Aruba, Curacao, and then there's Bonaire Island. Now, I've been to this island about five times now. My wife's been to the island 4 times, and 4 of those 5 times we stayed at Plaza Resort. And I would say that diving in Bonaire Island is definitely unique, and it stands out versus some of the other locations that this world has to offer diving. But there's a particular dive site that I've always rather enjoyed on Bonaire Island, and that is the Hooker. The Hilma Hooker on Bonaire Island. Now, I've done probably about a dozen dives on this shipwreck, explored all the exterior of it, went inside, a couple hallways, went in the cargo hold, but there's something that I really need to do on this shipwreck, and it's been a while since I've been there. The last time I was there was 2021 with my buddy Scott, but now I need to go back. But first, before I get into that with you guys, I'm going to give you a little brief history on this shipwreck. So the Hilma Hooker was built about 1950 in the Netherlands. It was a cargo ship. It exchanged many hands. But finally, in 1979, it was purchased by a Colombian shipping line, and the name was changed because the original name was Midland. Now is changed from Midland to the Hilma Hooker. Now, when the Colombian company took over, the Hooker, she started doing bad things, and she started popping up on some radars, Interpol and FBI, and I'll get into that. So the 5 years that the new owner, or the newest owner, the Colombian shipping line had with the Hilma Hooker, she was neglected. They didn't take good care of her. And one day in the summer of 1984, just 5 years after this Colombian company purchased her, she was off the coast of Bonaire. She was having some kind of technical difficulties or mechanical difficulties, but when they went into the island and they were talking to authorities, basically customs and immigrations, the crew could not produce papers, and they ran it with Interpol, thinking something was kind of fishy. Interpol was basically saying, this is a drug smuggling ship. This is what we're coming to the conclusion for. It's a drug smuggling ship. And the FBI had been tracking her as well, because even the FBI suspected her of being a drug smuggling ship. Now, once authorities boarded this ship and started searching, there was a bulkhead, but they also found a false bulkhead. There was 25,000 pounds of marijuana on this ship. So the crew was probably arrested, and the ship was definitely seized because it's evidence now. And they're going to try to figure out if they can prosecute this new owner, the newest owner, which is this Colombian shipping line. But the owner, they're not stepping forward. They're not going to be responsible for this drug smuggling, and they're just going to ignore the ship. They're not even going to try to reclaim it, I guess. They're just going to leave because it's a derelict ship. It's basically falling apart. It constantly needs to pump water to keep the ship from sinking. So now we go from summer to September. It's basically the ship is tied up at the dock, and the authorities are worried the ship is going to sink right there at the dock where they need to receive and export cargo. So now they're talking with the dive community to figure out where they can put the ship in case it sinks. In the dive community, they select a spot where it's a little sandy spot, it can sink, it's not going to damage the coral reef, and it can turn into an amazing dive site. Now, not everybody in the community was on board, but they were trying to come up with a plan. And meanwhile, what they did with the marijuana is they loaded all the marijuana onto dump trucks, took it somewhere in the island, and they piled it up and burned it, making whoever was upwind high for probably several days from 25,000 pounds of marijuana getting burned. Who knows? Maybe not all the marijuana got burned, but I mean, is pretty interesting that they just piled it up and burned it, because you would think that that was probably evidence too. So on September 7th, they relocated the ship just a little bit south along the coast on the island, right there where they end up making the sea salt for the island and exporting it right there, just a little north of the salt pier. Now, it didn't take long. Some days later, September 7th to September 12th, that's when the pumps finally gave out. September 12th in 1984, the ship was finally unable to pump out any water, started taking on water, and started its descent down to the bottom of the ocean right there. And it rests at just shy of 100 feet deep. Now, this is an amazing dive site. I probably got about a dozen dives on this shipwreck, but I really beat myself up for not going in a certain part of the ship to check out the engine room. I really wanted to, and Scott and I were there in 2021, and it looked kind of sketchy, and I felt like I wasn't ready. I knew my limit, and I felt like I wasn't ready, so I didn't go that portion of the ship. I went in somewhere else and went down a hallway. I felt that with the years have gone by from 2021 to 2024, that I finally was able to build myself up to that point. And since then, I've went into many different shipwrecks. And I would say that the ones that really stood out were probably the two oil tankers, the Twin Sisters down in Nassau, Bahamas, where one of them you got to go all the way down to the lowest compartment where they used to keep the oil in the oil tanker and go swimming it through the different compartments, really watching your frog kicks and really not trying to stir it up or get caught. And you have to go halfway down the ship before there's even an exit. So you really got to be on top of it so you're not going to get trapped in the area where you're not going to be able to exit. And another shipwreck that I would say that we were exploring was the USS Spiegel Grove. And that one is off the coast of Florida. And that was a massive shipwreck with several layers, several hallways. You could easily get lost. And that was an amazing shipwreck as well that we ended up exploring, a portion of that shipwreck. So I felt with all these different shipwrecks that I've built up enough experience and confidence to finally go into the engine room of the Hilma Hooker. So before we can do that, let's go to the airport and pick up Scott.
You got a dog? Yeah, I did.
Fuck. We just got it at the supermarket, so you gotta drink it before it gets any warmer.
Steal it from the resort?
No.
Cheers.
Cheers. Now, before Scott and I can go and access the engine room to the Hilma Hooker, we have to go meet up with Ron Antigua at Rum Runners, and he's gonna tell us how we're gonna get access to the engine room of the Hilma Hooker. Scott, while you're here, while we're both here, we got to go check out the hooker.
Oh yeah, I'm going down on that hooker.
And we got to go in that hallway of the hooker where a T intersections, where there was some entanglements. So we got to go into the cargo hold and up that hallway to the T intersection.
Where you can penetrate the hooker.
Awesome. Let the journey begin. It finally took some convincing, but Ron Antigua finally shared with us the secret of how to access the engine room on the Hilma Hooker. But first, let's talk about Brenite lights. You ever find yourself in a position where you don't have a flashlight on hand, but you need to see, and it's completely dark or it's getting dark? Well, check this out. I got a light for you guys. This is a really small little keychain light. It's a Brenite A02 little keychain light, and this is pretty cool. It's the Brenite A02 Apollo keychain light. It's just this big. Check that out. Little tiny keychain light. The coolest thing about this keychain light though is easy to use and it's rechargeable. It comes with a Type-C charging cable. It'll even light up when it lets you know when it's charging. You also can find an operator's manual and a little warranty card that comes in this little box and this little keychain thing so you can easily hook it up to your car keys or any kind of keys, or maybe you just want a little light when you're traveling. I'll do a little demonstration right now. So as we're walking down this poorly lit area in the resort, we have a perfect opportunity to use the Brenite A02 keychain light. So there's the keychain light. It's pretty much lighting up the way right there. So pretty bright. Turn the light off. Boom. Can't see. Turn the light on. Boom. You see the silhouette, the keychain light. We're going to use this to light up our way so we can get to where we want to go. That's the Brenite keychain light. AO2 Brenite keychain light. So we've done 2 dives on the Hilma hooker on this trip. We did one by shore and one by boat. So as we're getting our gear ready for the boat portion, I wanted to also give a shout out to Toucan Diving for making a special boat run for us to dive on the hooker. So that's going to wrap up another episode of Cooper's Amputee Lifestyle. Thank you, Scott, for taking me down and checking out the engine room of the Hilma hooker, the classic shipwreck out on Bonaire Island down in the Dutch Caribbean. I also want to give a special thanks to Dan for setting up this trip. Thank you, Dan Balsley. I really appreciate it. I appreciate everybody who has attended all these trips. Also want to give a special thanks to Toucan Diving. Thank you. You guys were amazing on supporting us on our dives out here in Bonaire Island. And I want to give a special thanks to all the viewers out there for watching the content. Really appreciate your support. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, like, share the video, and we will see you on the next adventure. Take care, everybody, and be safe, and don't try this at home. Bye-bye.